Pegwell Bay is an internationally important nature reserve with multiple protections and is home to rare and endangered species, but it is under threat. We campaigned against the installation of the Nemo link cable, concerned about the damage it would cause to the precious saltmarsh habitat, but our voice was not heard, and National Grid pressed ahead and trenched the area. The scars from this development have never healed.
So in 2017, the Nemo link installed a cable between Belgium and the UK. The cable made landfall here, and you can see this corridor behind me should be pristine salt marsh, but unfortunately the pooling water is the remnants of the trenching they used to install the cable, and it still hasn't recovered 6 years after the work was completed. National Grid said that they could mitigate for the damage to the salt marsh, but as you can see behind us, that still hasn't taken place, and the salt marsh has failed to recover from the damage it received through the trenching.
Now, despite the lasting impact left by Nemo Link, this haven for wildlife is once again threatened, this time by National Grid's Sea-Link project.
So the Sea-Link project is part of the UK's upgrade of their electricity grid. So a lot of it's to do with renewable energy. And so the Sea-Link project is connecting Suffolk with Kent for renewable energy for offshore wind farm. So Kent Wildlife Trust are supportive of renewable energy, and we do understand the need for new infrastructure to support that. But we are in the midst of a climate and biodiversity crisis. So the two should be tackled in tandem. And so currently the Sea-Link project, the route for the Kent project, we think is the most environmentally damaging. National Grid submitted their preliminary environmental information report in October 2023, and that's supposed to have all the preliminary ecological information, all the preliminary mitigation measures, and looking at the environmental impact so consultees can review and assess the information to understand the project and the impacts it will have to the environment. However, one of our main concerns is that the PEER, the preliminary environmental information report documents, didn't have that ecological data. Majority of the ecological surveys were not undertaken, so it was really hard for us to appropriately assess the impacts to ecology and biodiversity, and therefore the mitigation as well. So what we would like to see is National Grid resubmit their PEER documents once they've undertaken at least a survey season of ecological surveys, so that they can actually provide more detailed mitigation and for us to be able to review it appropriately. And we do understand they are going to be drip feeding these ecological surveys throughout the year to relevant stakeholders, but we think they should resubmit for public consultation to allow the public to be able to have their view and their opinions on the project as well. So National Grid have identified 6 potential routes for the Kent onshore scheme. Their preferred route is Pegwell Bay. However, we think this is one of the most environmentally damaging routes because it goes through so many marine designations which are of international importance for their winter and bird assemblage. So we are asking National Grid to relook at their alternative routes, to consider less environmentally damaging options, which we believe there are, and to rethink Sea-Link.
We are losing species at an alarming rate, and while we support the move towards renewable energy, the climate and nature crises must be tackled in tandem.
So Pegwell and Sandwich Bay National Nature Reserve is nationally and internationally protected for its variety of varied and vulnerable habitats and some of the species here, in particular some of the overwintering birds that you can actually hear behind me on the reserve. They fly thousands of miles to get here every winter, and they rely on the mudflats and the salt marsh being undisturbed in order to feed, to gain energy and to put on enough weight to be able to survive the cold winter here as well. Of course, there are lots of other species here that people can enjoy when they visit Pegwell Bay, including our local population of common and grey seals as well. We have some really rare species here and some species that are important in national numbers, such as the sanderling, the turnstone, and the golden and grey plover. Some of those birds are overwintering waders, and we also have some birds that will use the local beaches here to breed in the summer months.
There are a number of alternative routes that the National Grid could use that have less of an environmental impact. So we are asking them to rethink the route, rethink their invasive methods, rethink Sea Link, and prioritise this precious and unique habitat for wildlife.